Kia ora, good afternoon. I've been sitting on this video for a couple of days. I just haven't had time to watch it properly because when I debunk videos, I need to pay attention, and I just haven't. My mind's been on other things, as you know. But I've just watched it. I watched the first one, and I thought, yeah, I need to make a video about this. And then I've just watched them all, and I'm like, oh. I swear to God, there should be laws that forces you to, when you make YouTube videos, by law, to put a disclaimer to say that this is for entertainment purposes only. So there's 10 cases in this video, and I'm going to go through every single one of them and explain it all to you, so that, and these are the sort of case subjects that I'll be using when I open my school. We will be talking about these sort of things so that when my students graduate and they head out into the world with their little bag of goodies, they'll know exactly what to look for, they'll know exactly what to do, they'll know exactly what it is, and they'll know how to deal with it. They'll be able to give the people that they're sent to advice when they make their videos for their channels, and that they'll be able to say exactly what it is, because I will teach them the right way. And as you know, this is what I was trying to teach my students before. The plan was, when I got to America, we were all going to go around making these shows. But that all kind of, it all went tits up. So I will start again, but I'll do it properly this time with my School of Alchemy, which is dedicated to the memory of Amber. So I'm going to go through all 10, and I'm going to explain to you what they all are, because you need to know. Because when you believe things that aren't real, it perpetuates the paranoia and fear that the paranormal is real. And what you're actually dealing with are quite often some very sick people who get a thrill out of selling the myth that the dead walk the earth, that we're surrounded by demons, and it's just not true. The demons are in them, if anything. And speaking of demons, the first one, the man with the recording of the ex-wife's voice, she was stalking him. Apparently it was quite a severe case of stalking, and he woke up one day with voice messages on his phone, and she's growling, and, she's what you would call demonically possessed. When it's a classic case of dissension psychosis, she's got a lot of pent-up issues. She's got things that she needs to resolve, and it's coming out in the form of, she's trying to scare him. She's trying to make out like there's something wrong with her. She says, help, please, or help me, please, and amongst all the gobbledygook. So it's like she's trying to lure him in by making him think that she needs help, whether it's good or bad, whether he gets her psychiatric help or what. She's trying to appear vulnerable in order to pull on his heartstrings so that he will walk away from his current relationship to go and deal with her, because they have a child together. So she's going through dissension psychosis, and she's not coping with the fact that he's moved on, that they're not together. She's losing her mind, basically. She's not living in the realms of logic and reason, because a logical person would never act like that. And I have worked on so many of these cases. I had a case myself personally where one of my big followers from my old Twitter account and WordPress and my YouTube, she followed me everywhere. We would occasionally talk via email. She wanted to be a student, but I wouldn't let her. I felt like she wasn't suitable for being a student. I had hundreds of people want to be students, and I stupidly picked all the wrong ones. But the thing was, she was one of these people that thought that she could. Sorry. She kept trying to buy my approval by thinking that if she offered me money and stuff, I would focus all my attention on her. And I can't be bought. I kept my distance with her. And then she started talking about how she was reading all these books about this and practicing this and getting into that. And then one day I get this email from her that is like, I don't know if she thought she was speaking in tongues, but it was basically she was threatening me. And then I thought I was doing a reading for someone. She'd booked a reading under a false name, and I went to do like a Skype back in the days of Skype. And it was her. And as soon as like the call, the video thing came on, she started talking in, like demonic tongue, just like what you see in that video. And she was saying about how, she was the vessel for this, and that, it was her job to stop me, and that I'm this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And I just went, and she was saying, you will fear me and stuff. And I just started laughing. I went, no. And she was like, blah, 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 and I'm like, no. I said, no, that's not how it works. And she was like, what? And I said, that's not how demonic possession works. I said, it doesn't work like that. I said, you would have no power over me. A demon would have no reason to come after me if I haven't done anything wrong. They wouldn't be allowed to come after me. The laws of demonic possession don't work like that. And she didn't know how to handle it. She just sat there, and I went, so yeah, I'm not doing this. And then I just said, you need to get help, and I hope you find healing. And I just clicked off. I never took her money. I never took anything. I just blocked her on everything, and that was it. But the second I challenged her, the second I wouldn't play into it, she had no choice but to stop and suddenly snap back into reality. I got an email from a fake account or a new account a few weeks later where, so I'm trying not to pass gas because I had a ice cream because it's hot or humid, where she was apologising, asking, could we talk again, and she needs my help in that, but no. Because when people do stuff like that, it's all about trying to control emotions, trying to control a situation that they have no control over. And so it's like going to the deepest, darkest levels of a depraved form of emotional and psychological control in order to get from it what they want. Not realizing that if she continues with behaviour like that, he would get her, he could like get custody of the child. She could be sectioned and that sort of thing. And when I was locked up, I was in with somebody who was convinced that she was God, and she used to have like little outbursts like that, and I just completely ignored her. Like you can't entertain that behaviour, because giving them attention like that gives them exactly what they want, because they end up of the mindset that negative attention from you is better than no attention at all. But it is all about the fundamentals of control. And the only thing you can do is block it and ignore it, and don't ever think for 1 second that it's like, demons in a biblical sense, because demons are the darkest parts of an unhealthy mind manifesting into reality. You manifest your demons, you manifest your darkness, you make it happen because you believe it. And if you're the sort of person that believes in possessions and demons, when your demons are triggered, it's going to come out as a demon or as a possession. See? Because the normal, average, everyday person who has a healthy, balanced mind doesn't act like that. And people who have a healthy relationship with God or their maker, or they're relatively good people who just don't bother anyone for no one and don't really have the kind of problems in their life that gets them inside their head, they don't have demons turn up on their doorstep, hi, I've come to possess you. Like, it doesn't work like that. There's laws to how this works, because you're dealing, the universe, and science has proven this time and time and time again. They know that wormholes are connected to the neurons in our brain, and we feed off each other, right? We have a conscious connection to the conscious universe. And so anything to do with thought is all connected and recorded, just like our actions and that out in the universe, because we're like one big giant brain. You know how the brain is made up of like the hippocampus and the hypothalamus, and that the universe is no different. All the different planets, all the different galaxies and solar systems and that, and comets and meteorites and stars, right? They're all just different parts of the universal brain. And we all work together in order to grow the brain or expand the universe. So when you're dealing with someone who is going to those levels, they're not functioning on healthy bandwidths. They've resorted to things that they think embody darkness, and then they manifest it. If you believe in demons, when you go through dissension psychosis, you're going to manifest demons. You will trigger your demons, and it will come out, and however you think a demon is. You manifest what you believe. I think, therefore I am. That's what I keep saying. Rene Descartes, he knew exactly what he was talking about. You manifest what you believe, and if you believe in demons, when you trigger them, you're going to manifest them. Because the paranormal mind exists in an imbalanced psychological mind, and she was stalking him, and they say at the start that it was quite a severe case of stalking as well, so she wasn't healthy. The best thing for him to do would have been to get her help, and he even says, I really hope she gets the help. But they have a little boy together, so that little boy needs to be taken away from her. If she's making phone calls like that, then she needs therapy. She needs help. She needs to go somewhere where she can talk out her feelings, remove her rage and her anger and her grief from the breakup and stuff, and heal before she's allowed around that kid. Because if she's doing that to trigger the husband, she could use the children or the child to trigger the husband as well. So until she's healed, the kid should be with the father. That's the whole thing that Chris tried to use against me, but it's like, no, you can't use the occult against me, because I'm an occult physicist. I know how it works. And you don't just sit there one day and all of a sudden start talking in a demon voice. This is something that has been manifesting for a long time for reasons that she's not addressing, because she's trying to get his attention. And this is like desperate times call for desperate measures, but it's exposed the lengths that she's going through in order to instill fear in the ex to get attention from him, so that she can control the contact that she has with him. So that's number one. Number two is the little girl sitting in the room playing, talking with her toys, and the video's trying to make out like she was in the room talking to something, and then the door opens, and then you hear growling, and she just gets up and quietly walks out. Firstly, this is the first and only recording of this incident. You can tell it's staged because of the fact that the parents just happened to set up their phone to record the little girl playing, and they've never done it before, and they've never done it since. And this is a case where it's quite sick, because what they've done is they've set it up to scare the child on purpose in order to engage the audience to get a reaction from the child. She's innocently playing with her toys. All little kids talk to their toys. All little kids will imagine play with their toys and do the voices and stuff like that, because they're born watching cartoons and that sort of thing, you know. So when they're sitting playing with their toys, in their mind, it's just like the cartoons. So it's got nothing to do with talking to dead people, like they, you know, the little girl was heard talking. She was playing. You always hear kids talking when they're playing. They'll put on silly voices. They act out roles and that, because they're used to watching cartoons and kids' TV shows and that, where that happens. So they reenact it and create their own stories and narratives in their head. It's got nothing to do with them talking to dead people. And then you can tell the way that the door opens when there's any engagement in these paranormal videos where it's involving doors. You have to look at how they open, because when you're talking about kinetic energy, it has a very kinetic energy is very fluid when it moves, and it only expands and becomes violent in nature once it hits something, right? And then that's when you'll get things fall off the wall. And because, as I was saying the other day, energy has to go somewhere, and kinetic energy comes from the mind. That's why they call it mind bullets. And just like when you pull the trigger on the gun, the bullet goes flying out, and while it's flying through the air, oi, while it's flying through the air, it's smooth. And then once it hits something, that's when you get the violent reaction. The doors are no different. And when something opens a door, like if it really is like, say, like a time slip, where it's someone in real life from the past or the future opening a door, it's just like in real life where the door will open smoothly. It will just open very smoothly. Unless they think that you're a ghost and they're kicking the door in because they're like, you know, what the hell's that in the other room? And then your times slip and then fades and you pass each other at the moment they kick the door open, because then when you scream, it snaps you out of the slip, and their act of kicking the door in pulls them out of the slip. So then you're both standing at nothing thinking, what the hell was that? Kinetic energy will always move very smoothly. They will not be able to turn handles and open the door the way that this one did. And then that noise, the low growling, was 100% staged. The doors don't open naturally. Also, as well, a demon would never, ever, 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 ever in a million, billion, trillion, gajillion years target a little girl. Ever. Unless she was like Mary Bell and killed a couple of kids, a demon, a demonic, or, you know, a negative entity would never, ever, 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 ever be allowed to target a child without getting away with it. Satan would be on them like white on rice. That's the parents. The parents did that to that little girl in order to get a reaction. And he even said that there's been no updates and no more communication from the parents after they uploaded the video. And I'm just wondering whether it's because people called them out for it. Because the thing is, if that was really happening, if that was like a real thing, because, you know, when you're under quote-unquote demonic attack, they don't just do it once, because they come after you until they collect your soul. Their whole purpose is to drag you down to hell with them, and they'd never be allowed to do that with a child. An innocent little girl playing, they'd never be allowed to do that. So a demon's purpose is to basically drive you insane, or drive you to the point where you commit the kind of crime where you either end up dead or locked up. So for an occurrence to happen just once is not true. They set the little girl up. I've seen that a lot, because the child's reaction is innocent and it becomes more believable. But in cases like number 2, always watch the doors. You can tell straight away just by how the door moves that there was something that was like, it's usually like fishing wire because it's invisible. Or, they hide behind the door and turn the handle and then, push it open, and they use the reel in that to pull it open. But that was, 100% staged, and they should be ashamed of themselves because they used their child, which is sick. Right, number 3, the van man. Oh, bless him. He got in his own head and spooked himself, basically. He was out in the middle of nowhere. He was going for a walk, happy as a lark, and then he saw that recliner, and it spooked. He was like, what the hell's a reclining chair doing out here? But the thing was, it was covered in leaves, so clearly it hadn't been sat in for a while. It hadn't been used or anything. Like, if there hadn't been leaves on it, I would have thought, yeah, that's weird. Maybe someone sits out there at night and maybe smokes a joint or sneaks a cigarette or something like that. But there were leaves on it, which means it was obviously dumped. Someone didn't want to take it to the dump and they put it out there, or, they use it sometimes to sit. People have loads of reasons as to why they put chairs out in the middle of nowhere. But then that triggered his paranoia. And then that turned into anxiety, and he got in his own head and started overthinking. And then when he heard the noises outside, he was cooking with an open door out in the middle of nowhere in America, and animals would have smelt that food and been sniffing around to see, is it safe for me to gain access to some of this food? And then when his camera moved, I'm probably guessing that, because, see, the other thing is he had a dog with him who wasn't reacting in any way, shape or form. And I always say, always look at the reactions of animals and children, and then you'll know exactly what you're dealing with. And the dog did nothing. The dog wasn't growling. The dog wasn't doing nothing. The dog, because this man has a life on the road, the dog is obviously used to camping in places where there's wild animals, and he wasn't reacting. The dog wasn't reacting at all. So when the camera moved, whatever, it was probably like a bear or a wolf or something like that, or raccoons or something, got a bit too close to the van. And when he heard the noise and jumped and spooked, he rocked the van and it tipped the camera. So he got in his own head, bless him. Number 4, the man in the depot shaking hands is totally staged. The dead don't manifest like that, and if it was a case of a time slip, the lights and all the cameras in that would have started flickering and reacting first. Because the soul can only exist in one body at one time, which is why our deceased loved ones tend to do it through like dreams and signs and synchronicities and all of that, rather than it takes a lot for them to have to manifest to turn up standing at the foot of your bed. And you feel it before it happens. Your body will automatically react before it happens. Your hair goes up on end because they have to gather momentum in order to split open time and step through time in order to do it. And when they do it, it's for split seconds, and they tell you what they're there for. They don't mess about. Even if it's just to smile and look at you as if to say, I'm fine, don't worry, sort of thing. And then they go, because a soul can only exist in one physical body at one time. And because we're already reborn, as we die, we already go through the rebirth reincarnation process as our spirit is leaving our body. We're essentially jumping from one body into another, into the womb of our new mother, or coming out the birth canal if the person who's died took a long time to die, if they slowly died or were in a coma and that. But one can't be born until the other has died. One physical body can't exist in that soul without the old body having died, because atoms have to deconstruct in order to reconstruct itself in a different form. They basically have to become antimatter to forget the biology on a cellular level of what they were in the last life in order to become something new in the new life. So in order to come through, they have to be asleep, you have to be awake and aware or asleep yourself, and then you meet in the ethers. But if they come through when you're physically awake, it's split second, and they wouldn't reach out to shake your hand. It would be physically, it defies the laws of physics in every kind of way, because as soon as if it was a time slip, his body would have reacted first. The hair would have gone up on his body. The lights would have flickered, because in order to break open time like that, you have to gather a lot of energy to do it. And then because of our central nervous system, the neurons in our brain start firing, and we'd hear like the clicking. You will always hear clicking, because that's the static building up in the atmosphere when you know something supernatural is about to happen. And just before you have that interaction with your sleep paralysis demon, or whoever's going to stand at the foot of your bed or come through or show themselves in the hallway, you'll always hear the clicking, and then the hair on the back of your neck will stand up. You'll feel it down your spine, then the hair on your arms will stand up, and that's when you know that you've crossed over into the supernatural realms, because electromagnetic static electricity is basically the ion particles of the Earth's atmosphere rubbing together in order to break open time for them to come through. But when they come through, it's fleeting, it's fast, and they wouldn't be hanging about like they were in that video. And if they touched them, he'd know it. He'd jump back, he'd get a fright, he'd get a shock. And you usually find in cases like this one, and number 7 and number 10, maybe even number 8, a lot of people will fake paranormal activity for one or two reasons. They want to clock off early. Oh, I had to leave because the place is haunted. Or they're trying to get interest in their building so that paranormal investigators will set up cameras, and because people love to do investigations and it's good hype for the business or the company. I've had a lot of people who have owned businesses who offered me the chance to investigate their establishments here in the UK and in America, where I said to them, but you realise that I will debunk it. Then they didn't want to know me. One lady said to me, I make too much money from the paranormal groups and that coming to visit. I have people coming to stay. I make a lot of money from people wanting to stay in these rooms and stuff. They don't, so they don't want it to go away. Most people don't want it to go away because it brings too much attention to their business, because people eat this stuff up. And it's wrong, because what happens is when you believe death wrong, it traps the genuine energy here that is trying to be released, like the Crenshaw slave house. By everyone believing the wrong things about what's going on there, it's not releasing what is trapped there, and it's keeping them trapped there for everybody else's own ghoulish amusement, and I hate that. I call them gorehounds and ghoulhounds and that, and they keep it going. They keep the suffering of the dead alive for their own amusement, and I can't stand that. So I always vowed, like from way back when I get out there, I'm going to shut it all down and cross them all over. So there'll be a lot of people that won't like me, because I did it with Lizzie Borden's house. So so the handshake man, it's not true. The flying branch, you have to be careful with things that you see in this day and age with drones and stuff, what you see floating in the air, because a lot of these kind of things with floating branches, for example, is a test to see how far they can get away with tricking you into thinking that these things are real. Branches don't float in the air. You have to use your logic. The way it was moving and hovering, it was under some sort of remote force. and it's usually they're wanting you to keep away from certain areas, or they're trying to make you believe in things that aren't real so that you will believe in things that aren't real. It's all like tricks of the mind and mind control and illusion. The way it was moving, you could tell it was a drone. Drones don't have to just look like drones, they can make them look like all sorts of things. So the man on the train that caught like the apparition that looked like the ring staged, it's just not going to happen. Why would a girl in a nightdress with long black hair be standing in a train station at night, I think it was, in Spain? Like, please, use logic. So the ring caused a whole lot of trouble in the paranormal world, because now these girls in these long night dresses with long dark hair, straggly kind of wet looking hair, they pop up everywhere, and it's like, oh, so you have to ignore that sort of thing. I'm questioning why he was recording the train ride in the underground that whole time. He wasn't talking. He wasn't, talking to the camera or talking to anyone on the camera, and it was moving so fast. All you could see was like the lines, ka-dong, 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 ka-dong. And then all of a sudden, when he gets to the light bit, you see who's standing in the maintenance area bit, and then he just happens to, like, catch it. So, yeah, staged. Train stations love to perpetuate the paranormal myth because it gets people on the trains, it gets them in the subways. People will spend a lot of money going to towns and going visiting places that they believe are paranormal, because everyone wants to be the one to catch the proof that it's all real. And the paranormal industry is like a multi-billion-dollar industry, all told. So, and I just, as a high priestess, I can't stand that. I represent the afterlife and the underworld, and it's in my Egyptian nature to understand the process of life and death and everything in between, and that kind of thing. I don't like it at all, and so it's one of the reasons why my students and that came after me as well, is because I was debunking what they were wanting to make a future out of. They didn't want me coming along and saying to them, that's wrong, don't do that, because they wanted to get away with it. And I wasn't going to have that on my reputation. So I take I take this stuff very seriously. As I keep saying to people, if that was your loved one and their soul was trapped, wouldn't you want someone crossing them over? Or would you want someone shoving cameras in their face, making up all sorts of horrendous things about them just so that they could keep investigating them? It's our duty, when something is genuinely stuck here or trapped here, it's our duty to cross them over. It's our responsibility, especially if you're Indigenous. And people don't. They just investigate it and set up cameras and, want to make money off it and get the likes and subscribes and that. And I just can't have that. So I go against the grain and people don't like me for it. But, I can't disrespect the dead like that. So, number 7, the school, staged. And I'll tell you how I know it was staged is because when she unlocks the first door, the light to the office is already on, but when she unlocks the second door, she has to turn it on. Now, she was making, oh, what's that behind the door? There's something knocking at the door. And she unlocks the door, but the light's on, and she doesn't like, oh my God, the light's on, sort of thing. And it's not one of those ones where she unlocks it and then the light comes on itself. When she opens the door, the light is on. And then when she unlocks the second door, she has to turn the light on, which means the light was already on, but she doesn't mention anything about the first light. So she either had someone that was knocking on the window or she was doing something to it. And then the first thing she said, when obviously again, was the door. And it was the kind of door that you just push. It was like a swing door. And those swing doors have a habit of opening if you walk a little bit too close to them, because it moves the floorboards. and those swing doors can knock open very easily. But in her case, when she said, "Can you shut the door?" the way that it moved with force like that, there was something helping that door close, and it wasn't living. Because the thing is, that's not a normal occurrence. And it doesn't matter how calm you are or what you believe in. When something like that suddenly happens, your first reaction isn't to get your phone out and start recording. Your first reaction, your instincts, are going to immediately kick in, because it is wired in the fabric of our DNA that if our instincts are experiencing something that is not natural, because when we were getting eaten by everything before we were primates, we had to watch out for predators that were hiding under camouflage things in the jungle and in the sand and in the water and that. Our instincts, we're born with instincts, but we have to tune in our intuition, right? So if something unusual happens that gives you any iota that your life is in danger, your instincts kick in and you bolt it. Or you freeze and can't move, fight or you fight it. Fight, freeze, or flight. You run, you charge at it, or you freeze in fear. And she was like, "Oh my God, that door, it's opening," and blah, blah, blah. So always watch. You sound like Dracula, blah, blah, blah. So always watch their reaction. If their reaction isn't one of genuine fear or curiosity, or what the hell was that? Oh my God. Because then some people, they need to, where the hell did that come from? What the hell was that? They need to go and investigate it. But when they act calm like that, that's going against their own instincts. And your instincts are there to keep you alive. So your intuition alerts you of danger, but your instincts protect you from danger. And when you don't listen to your intuition, you can walk into your death because you didn't listen. And when those alarm bells start ringing, you get out of there. And my guess is, like I said, she wanted to leave early because the first thing she did was, "Yeah, I'm not finishing today. I'm going home." Blame the school. Apparently, it's a haunted school. I mean, no, but anyway, yeah, that happens a lot. People will use it as an excuse to go home early. Number 8, the face. The paranormal investigators that record the face. Digital cameras. If it picks up pockets of cold air, you have to look at where the so-called anomaly of the face appeared. It was in the top left-hand corner of the door, where they said it was like someone was peeking around the door. How tall were they? They would have had to have been about 6'8" tall because of where it was positioned, which says to me, using digital cameras, it was either a glitch in the digital, the way that the recording picks up movement, and then can't process it right through, what do you call it? Oh, my ex-husband explained it to me. It's got something to do with the microprocessor in the chip can't compute what it's picking up, so it fills in the blanks. And because, pareidolia, if we think it's the paranormal, we're going to put a face on it. But what it looked like to me was like a pocket of cold air, and the camera picked up on it, and then of course the camera, the microchip or the microprocessor or whatever it's called, couldn't figure out what it was, so it filled in the blanks. It knew that something was moving, couldn't figure out what it was. It looks like a pocket of cold air. Cold air in those kind of cameras will always show up as like dark spots and shapes. And this one was really high up. And heat rises at night time. So it could have been the heat from the building during the day soaking up the rays of the sun, rising at night time and meeting the cold air that was, midway sort of above the door, because heat is always warmer the lower down you go in a building. and it's cooler up the top, you know, by the doors and stairways and all that sort of thing. And when the two rise, when the warm air collides with the cooler air, you get those pockets like you see in the video of number 8. Number 9, I don't even know why it's there. The girl put her flatmate inside a folding couch, and then they stood hysterically laughing while she was panicking and suffocating. That was just idiotic. I don't even know why that's in there. And number 10, the mall. Now, this is one of two things. Either they got the little girl to do it, because again, the first thing they said was these were mall security, I think, or they were cleaning the mall or something, but it was locked up at night. I think they were mall security, or they were there cleaning the mall or something, and they saw the little girl. One or two things. Either it's staged, because the first thing they said was, we're going home, we're out of here, because trust me, that happens a lot. For someone who's been studying the paranormal for almost 50 years, I see it a lot. There's a pattern that you pick up on. Or it's a time slip. They would have been seen a little girl who was at the mall one day at some point in time in the past or the future, and their paths crossed because she never went past the pillar. They said she vanished after the pillar. So either she was like one of the kids of someone that worked there, or it was a time slip. Or, I mean, it could be a time bend as well, because she wasn't reacting to them. It's not like she was coming towards them or waving. So it could be a ghost, a classic ghost, as in like stone tape theory. Stone tape theory, they don't even know you're there. But with the haunting or the time slip, they'll interact with you. They just don't, well, sometimes they can realise that something's not right, but that's for another time. I've got other videos that explain about hauntings, what they really are. So that's it. So I've put the link in the description box below, and you can watch them now, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. But I can't let people get away with this stuff, because it's disrespectful to the memory of our ancestors and our deceased loved ones. And the only way that we're going to make the paranormal go away and heal people's imbalanced psychological mind is if people see the truth and admit the truth and heal from the myth of what we're choosing to believe, which is unhealthy. Okay? Like I said, like I keep saying, when I get out of here and I make my shows and my radio shows and my mysteries inside histories and, you know, my paranormal private eyes and all that with the kids, I'll be able to explain it all in the physical and not just my voice. So I'm going to go now, and I shall speak to you later. Ka kite anō.